So you sound like you're a big fan of the movies and the comics as well. Are there any of your favorite, comic book characters, your own or somebody else's, that you would just love to see on screen right now?
It's funny actually, I suppose Hollywood has been combing back issue bins, looking for things that would work as a film, and all the obvious ones are probably done. I mean, Green Lantern's the one I always thought would have potential. I've always felt that because it's a very simple, high concept, and it's quite different from any other superhero movie. It's much more cosmic than a Marvel thing, for example, so it'll feel quite unique. And I think it's got amazing potential for children as well, which would be great. The Flash, I think, is a difficult one. A super speed movie, yes. The Flash with his little wingtips and all that, it looks amazing drawn, but I think in real life could look a bit weird. I'd love to see Pixar or somebody do an animated version of The Flash or something. It would be great as a CG cartoon, but I don't know how that would work as a movie really. Wonder Woman again, also I think great character, it's an icon, but it's like Mickey Mouse. It's something everyone knows, but is anyone really going to go and see a movie? It's female heroes have a really hard time. It's quite a tricky one. So I don't know. I think Aquaman would be good. Although, how do you get over the talking underwater thing? Is crazy as that sounds, I've thought about this. How do you have characters talking underwater? And I think again, animation might be better for something like Aquaman. So I don't know. I think that's why the time I think is ripe now for new characters, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do what Stan did back in the '60s and just create a wave of new things for this generation. And Nemesis and Kick-Ass and all those things are all part of that plan that I have.
So, as far as Kick-Ass goes, how much collaboration did you have with Matthew Vaughn?
We hugely, I wrote the first 4 issues of the comic and issue 6. It's an 8-issue series. When Matthew started the screenplay, and I gave him half a page of notes for issues 5, 7, and 8. So Matthew obviously knew the general plan of where it was going, the scenes that were coming up. But I changed things. When you sit and write the script, it's funny, you make tweaks. And I wanted to give Big Daddy an extra twist in the book that wasn't in the movie. I felt it was too straight as a comic. It had to have a little twist. And I wanted to have Katie, whenever Dave reveals that he's gay, to tell him to fuck off. I thought that was just much more likely, because if you'd been lying to a girl pretending to be gay for 6 months, and then eventually says, you know what, I'm not gay, I've been lying all along, she's not going to kiss you, But I think it needed it in the movie. You absolutely had to do it in the movie, because it would have been so unsatisfying not to see them get together. But as a comic, I just felt I could be a little more cynical with it. Oh yeah.
So now, as far as Hit Girl goes, I mean, she stole the film. So I mean, how did you like that? Seeing her just really own everything.
Well, what was funny actually is that Hit Girl and Big Daddy were the stars of the book originally. A year before I showed it to anyone, I had a comic called Kick-Ass. It went through a few different names, but Kick-Ass was one of the names, and it was going to be about Big Daddy and Hit Girl, and that's why I wrote issue 6 before I wrote issue 1, because that was their origin story, with them standing wearing the bulletproof vest, shooting at each other and so on. And something about it just felt too cartoony. Great character, but a great supporting character, kind of like Han Solo in Star Wars. And you just think Star Wars couldn't have starred Harrison Ford. It needed a viewer identification figure, and Dave Lazuski was my identification figure. It was a guy based on things in my own life, but then he met all these colourful characters based on having a much more common through line, than those guys had. So I humanised it by putting Dave in it.
So how'd you feel about the casting then?
Great. I mean, we were we were in daily contact. I mean, Matthew and I would sometimes have 4-hour calls about things. It was crazy, but just great fun, really exciting, and feeding off the energy off each other. And it was great just keeping us in the loop at all times and sending me up a special thing I could look at where I could see that day's casting, see who'd been tested that day. And he would say, can you think of anyone for this character? And next day we'd have them in. It was crazy, at one point for Dave I suggested the wee boy from The Sixth Sense, Joel Haley Osment, whatever. And I didn't realise he's like a man now, because I thought he'd be quite good as a schoolboy and everything. Macaulay Culkin I suggested, not realising he's 42 or something now, So it was really exciting to just think of someone and then watch them testing next day. It was thrilling.
So now, given the cast the audience reaction you saw last night, and a lot of the critical reaction that there's been, it's just awesome for the movie. Do you feel any pressure for book 2 now, because maybe they're going to be talking for a second movie? I
always feel pressure with it. It's funny because every time I write a book, I always think, oh my God, I've got to make this the best it possibly can be, and sometimes I'll get through 3 complete drafts before I'm happy with an issue. So that's why on average, it terrifies me when I think about it. I do about 15 books a year, where a lot of my friends do between 40 and 60. I only do about 15 because I rewrite so much. And the first draft can be perfectly good, but I rip it up if I'm not happy and do a completely brand new draft where not one word is the same. I do that all the time. And so I'm always quite tough on myself, and I'll be just as tough on myself with Kick-Ass 2.
Would you love to see a sequel?
Oh, there will be a sequel. There's just no doubt about it. Like, the first one wasn't a hugely expensive movie, and it's going to make a fortune. There's just something would have to go incredibly wrong for this not to do really, really well. And it's not being too cocky. It's good. We're really happy with it. I love it. Everybody I know that's seen it's been really into it. Lionsgate think this is going to be really big. And we could do a sequel relatively inexpensively as well, So, the book's happening, I'm going to start writing the sequel in April and hopefully have that out in September, around about the time the DVD's launched.
So, just one last one. Like I said, I love comics. Obviously, I love movies. One thing I'm really excited for, but just wanted an opinion on what you thought. How about Edgar Wright's Scott Pilgrim?
Can't wait. I think it's funny. I was talking to the editor of Empire about this recently, and I actually love Edgar Wright stuff so much. I want to write an article on what a good director I think he is, because I feel as if sometimes he's overlooked. Like, his first 2 movies, his 2 theatricals, like Hot Fuzz and Shaun of the Dead, are like 2 of the greatest British movies ever made. I love them. I love Spaced. I really like the guys. Like, Simon Pegg's a lovely guy. He wrote an introduction for a book of mine called American Jesus, so I'm quite friendly with him, and he's a great comic actor. He's absolutely brilliant. So I can't wait for it. I really can. The only thing that was slightly annoying is that we wanted Michael Cera originally as Dave, and we were competing with the Scott Pilgrim guys because they were after him too, and they got him in the end. But we were really lucky. Then we lucked out with Aaron. But for a while we'd nobody to play Dave, and we were so gutted to lose Michael Cera. So other than that, I love Edgar Wright.
And then just one last question I always like to ask. Is there anything that you haven't gotten a chance to talk about here at the festival that you'd really like to just share with our audience?
Actually, the weird thing is, it's kind of like, if you give an infinite number of monkeys, an infinite number of typewriters with an infinite amount of time, eventually they're going to write the works of William Shakespeare, just the way that science works out. That's what I've been like when I've been here. I've been talking non-stop for about 36 hours, just continuously, and I think I've probably got everything I've ever needed to say out in the last 36 hours. I've got nothing left interesting to say, probably. I don't know, just drive safely, So.
And then, since we're film school rejects, do you have any reject moments from your career that
oh my God,
you've never shared that you'd like
reject?
to?
Oh, millions. I'll tell you one, actually. There was a magazine, when I was at university, there was a magazine called, a comic called Victor in the UK, and it was a boys' war comic. And I never really was into UK comics. I always wanted into the US, but I was trying to get work in the UK before I went there. And I wrote a story for them about a bunch of military type guys. It was all those kind of World War II kind of stories. And I was so bored with the story that to make it interesting for myself, I put dirty names in for the characters. So there was a sailor called Seaman Staines, and I had a soldier called Gunnar Rhea, and there was obviously private parts and things like that, And the amazing thing was the editor really liked the story, said it was really good. And then by the time I wrote the second part, he suddenly realised all the names I was writing were filthy names, And he wrote me this letter saying, "You will never work for us ever again." So that was my first rejection letter.
All right. Thank you so much. We really appreciate sitting with us.
Thank you.